All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3. What's so funny?
Could you sound a little more excited?
I know.
Could you
that's
sound
what
a
I was
little more
like.
excited?
No, man.
Let's get this show on the road. We got problems here.
Let's get some energy, too. Like, last couple episodes, you got no energy. Here we go.
He was
boy.
depressed in the last one after they lost.
Oh, yeah, because I was
Welcome-
pissed.
Welcome to the
I was
Matter of
supposed to
Stats.
be, we lost by 27 points. I was supposed to come on happy.
Billy,
What's up?
are you prepared?
I'm as prepared as I normally am.
Wrong answer. Wrong answer.
What's happening, everybody? Matter of Stats podcast here with you, video style this time. Myself and Kobe on camera, on cue. Billy, I think he had some schoolwork to do or something, so he took a PTO day. Kobe, what's happening?
Happy National Taco Day. What you know about that, Anthony? Today's
National Taco Day. Wow.
Did you know
Well,
that? Didn't know that.
there's a national day for everything, but I mean, taco gets every Tuesday, and now they get a special national day.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, well, I guess.
I'm doing good though, man. How you feeling? I know you're still reeling from Media Day mania.
Yeah, Media Day is always that most optimistic moment, right? Where everybody's 0-0. Everybody believes they got a chance, right?
Everybody's happy right now. Everybody's in good spirits.
We're healthy, ready to go, more or
except
less.
for apparently Jimmy Butler this season. He's taking it serious this year.
Yeah, well,
Jimmy Butler, no crazy antics, no crazy hair. He's showing up ready for business apparently this season. But.
Yeah. In a contract year. I think it's just coincidence, right? No. He's all of a sudden he's all business when there's money on the line. All right. Well, of course, we before we get started, we want to remind everybody to please make sure you check out the Matter of Stats podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Check out all our social media outlets, and please give us likes, thumbs up, retweets. Anything, any appreciation is good appreciation. So
there you go. Let's go.
All right.
I know Billy's not here, but he's here in spirit.
He's always here. He's always here, right? Whether we want him, he's always like the voice in my mind, like, shut up, Billy. He's always here. I can't get rid of him.
Oh boy.
So let's before we get into Media Day, of course, let's talk just real quick. So last week, Rob and JJ had their inaugural, annual, whatever you call it, the press conference to start the season, and they talked about their own optimism, the belief in the roster, and their sort of general concept of they're not concerned about depth because they feel like if they're healthy and have a little bit of good fortune, and JJ is going to instill all these values and ethics and the greatest system we've ever seen and hold everybody accountable. And I get it. It's all rah, good stuff. Sort of like, what's the old Mike Tyson line, Kobe, right? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. I mean, how many times are you going to use that on this pod?
Well, because it always fits. It always seems to fit with us, right? We're always perfect until we're not.
Oh, God.
Anyways, that being said, Rob and JJ, gave their rah-rah speeches and stuff last week to the media. And then this week, Media Day for every team, of course. Lakers had their Media Day on Monday. And it was, I think, like I said, they're always good in theory, but, went well. I think this year, there's that general, anytime you have a new coaching staff, right, there's sort of like a fresh breath of air in the room, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about it in general, but specifically you and I kind of give our takeaways, maybe things we liked, didn't like, things we heard that we think are impactful, or just the general sense of what we took away from Media Day and how we're feeling about this team as they get ready to, start the season and the preseason here, obviously, later this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the most evident thing, well, at least what I took away from pretty much everybody's interview, were the seeds that JJ Redick is seemingly planting, amongst the entire team. Everybody had something to say about JJ and the conversations that, they had with him from D'Lo's like, he's like, man, no one's ever said, I can have a career year, and Austin Reeves is like, oh my God, like the more I listen to him, like the smarter and smarter he is. And then your boy C Wood, he's got the green light, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
So
he needs to get the healthy light first.
He's got about 4 weeks apparently, but that felt like my biggest takeaway. It just seems like JJ had his fingerprint, all over these guys over the past couple weeks, as far as his plans for them, and just giving them confidence and stuff like that. So that was my main takeaway. What was your main takeaway?
Similar to that, I think that probably for me, the biggest takeaway specifically was a general sense of awareness, kind of piggybacking to what you're saying, of not just identity, but focus, purpose. We're going to use the word, I think, accountability a lot this year. That was obviously pretty evident in JJ's press conference last week and the interviews he had yesterday at Media Day about not just establishing a system, but really establishing the identity and culture of what he wants this team and these players to be, right? Everybody understanding their roles, understanding their purpose. And I think that clear expectation set by this coaching staff, some of that it just comes because they're new, obviously, right? When you have brand new coaching staff, you're going to get that sense in general. But I think that it feels like this is something that was clearly lacking the last couple of years under Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham was a little more of a, let's just say, kind of motivational speaker, not as much as the hands-on tactical, we're going to have a clear identity and hold people accountable guy. He was more of the, it's a hell of a team over there. It's a hell of a team. Great. How do we beat them?
He was winging it, right?
He was making it up as he went along.
Yeah, and I felt that shot from D'Lo, man. I felt it when he was just like, sometimes I didn't trust, what was being said to me, in certain schemes and in certain game plans. He's like, but I feel like I have that trust with JJ, so. There was people were saying, was he taking a shot at Darvin? Well, let me think about that for a second, so.
Well, right.
But yeah, I mean, again, overall, I think that the sentiment from most of the players, from almost everybody, was positive over the way JJ's been handling everything so far. So,
yeah. Well, you mentioned trust, obviously, specifically with D'Lo. And obviously, we know the 2 years under Darvin Ham, they did not really see eye to eye, particularly 2 years ago, with him and Schroeder and that whole dynamic. Obviously, I'm critical of D'Lo on this podcast. I don't think that's really a total surprise.
No.
But I respect the fact that he got up on that podium and he said, I want to apologize to every Laker fan because I didn't hold myself accountable. I didn't always give you my best effort on and off the court last year. And I'm going to try to do better this year. So I can respect that, despite my criticism of his play and his postseason game and all that stuff. I can respect the fact that at least he went up there and said, hey, I wasn't as good as I could be. And I apologize for that.
Okay, but real quick before you go on, give me specific examples, because I don't really recall, at least last season, especially off the court, what he did that was so unprofessional or holding himself accountable, because I really didn't see it. So what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, obviously he didn't go into specific details, but my impression of what he was saying was, he had some stretches early in the season when he struggled. Obviously the postseason, numbers are well documented. But I think when he's talking about a little bit of the professionalism or lack thereof was the stretch where he was coming off the bench and he's never handled that well. He didn't handle it the
But
first
what did he
time.
do? Like, I didn't see him do anything. I didn't see him pout. I didn't see him complain at the podium, really. I mean,
No, I think that maybe he just feels like he could have handled it better from maybe a
okay, but that's
teammate
how
standpoint.
but
A
that's how
teammate standpoint.
that's how he feels. And what you're saying
Right.
is that you appreciate that, he's coming out and saying these things because you're often critical of him. So I'm just trying to understand if there was anything specifically that you could pinpoint that he really did last season that was so unprofessional or not holding himself accountable. If anything, I think the biggest thing was there were 2 question marks around D'Lo. It was his defensive play and
Yeah.
if he was going to show up in the playoffs. And I would say he improved marginally in both of those areas. He did improve defensively as far as an effort standpoint.
Yes.
And, he did show up a game or 2 in the playoffs. He wasn't a complete dud. So he did make improvements.
Right.
But to say that he, stunk it up 2 seasons in a row, doing the exact same thing and not holding himself accountable, I think maybe he's just being a little too hard on himself.
Well, maybe he is, but
because he went on that amazing stretch pre trade deadline. That was like one of the hottest streaks that anybody had seen from any Laker player in a while. So
right. Well, like I said, for me personally, I take it as him saying, I'm going to do better this year all around, all season, and particularly in the playoffs. So that's my takeaway from it. I agree. Maybe he was being a little too hard on himself, but just the fact that he's going to stand up and say, I know that I can do better and I want to be better and I want to be more consistent. At least I can respect that because it's not something that you typically hear, especially on a media day, right? You don't hear a player come out and apologize to the fans on media day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of all places, right? This is like the eternal optimism day where everybody's glorious and nothing can be wrong. And the first thing he says is, I want to apologize to all the fans. Yeah. So it was just different. But the point I was going to make about the trust was not just Ham and Redick, but I think the fact that this coaching staff, obviously we know Redick doesn't have the experience, but the assistants, you have 2 high-level experienced assistant coaches. And I think that trust factor also lays into the fact that maybe the players look at this coaching staff as a totally different unit than they did last year because you have some high-level coaches that have coached at all levels in the playoffs, played in the NBA. So I think that all of that trust lends to a greater respect as well. I had a couple other small, I think those were kind of my main takeaways. The trust, the accountability, just kind of like what you kind of hinted at too. But some smaller things, obviously JJ Redick seems to be preaching much more of a detailed, tactical philosophy, which is obviously way different than Darvin Ham's philosophy, right? Because that was one of the biggest criticisms of him besides the rotation, which JJ's already addressed. We're not gonna dick around with trying something cute. We're gonna play our best players and hope we win.
Yeah.
But Darvin Ham was never obviously criticized of being like overly strategic or too detail oriented. So I think, that is something that I'm encouraged to see. And I'm going to say it and you're going to laugh, but the fact that JJ's preaching, we got to take more threes. Finally, baby, let's get in. Let's ain't the 90s anymore. Let's go. We finally realized we got to take more threes to keep up with everybody. We got to crash the offensive boards. We got to get better in transition D. Like, finally, let's step up into the modern NBA and do some things that other teams are doing and not take 18 threes a game.
Well, that was going to be a shocker from JJ of all people, right?
Right. Oh, I know. Right. Yeah. Let's take some threes.
But speaking of which, one of the things that I found interesting was, my boy Rui, and in one of his interviews, he basically said they want me taking more threes. They want me taking more threes. And to our point last week, when, I brought up Rui led the Lakers in percentage last season in threes at 42%, just barely edging out D'Lo. But takes about a third of the amount that D'Lo takes.
Right.
But he was honest. Like Rui was open and honest and said, they want me taking more threes. I'm playing LeBron 3-point contest and I'm beating LeBron, so it's giving me confidence. He's like, but that's just not really my game. I like to focus on the mid range a little bit more, and so that explains it. Like if Rui, and you should argue like Rui should have the confidence because he's the best percentage-wise 3-point shooter on the team, but that's just his self-awareness of him knowing like that's kind of not my game. I'm more of like a mid-range kind of guy. But the fact that JJ's on him and LeBron's on him and everyone's on him to shoot more threes, I think this could be a big season. And hey, I'm here for it. I'm like I said, that's why I got my Rui jersey on today, and I'm right. Torian ain't in his way no more. Darvin Ham
finally,
ain't in his way no
more.
And who knows? We might see a new big three. You never know.
Well, and I think when people talk about taking more threes, like volume threes, I think you have to look at it like, I don't think JJ's saying that he wants everybody to take 8 threes a game and jack up 55 a night. I think what he's saying is he just wants to create a culture and philosophy that will fit within the style of offense that he wants to run, that is going to require people to take more threes, stretch the floor so they can, crash the boards from the sidelines, and, some of the specific things that JJ's talking about implementing into this offense. So I think some of that is tactical. Some of it is, keeping pace with the rest of the league, right? It's just difficult in today's NBA to not at least make X amount of threes, right? You don't have to make 25 a game, but when other teams are making 14, 15 a night and you're making 8 or 9, it just makes it that much harder for your offense to be highly efficient. And I know JJ specifically used the word efficiency like as one of his key hopes or goals, right? He wants this Laker team to be highly efficient because it wasn't last year in key areas. So I think that's why it lends to the idea of taking more threes, not necessarily to jack up a ton of reckless threes, but in order to increase the efficiency, you're going to have to get a little more production from the 3-point line so that you don't have to work as hard to score, right?
Maybe. You need both. You can't sit here and say you need to put the volume up to be efficient. I don't think that necessarily translates all the time from a percentage standpoint, because whether you shoot, like we've said a million times on this pod, whether you shoot 1,000 or whether you shoot 100, the percentage is the percentage at the end of the day. And putting up more volume is not necessarily going to increase your percentage, as Rui has shown you. He shot 3 times less the threes, but he had a better percentage. So, that doesn't necessarily mean anything when you're putting up more volume. And I'll tell you this, words like efficiency, attention to detail, I love those kind of words. Those are kind of words that I personally use in my personal life and in my work life. So again, I've been an advocate of JJ Redick long before he even got this coaching job. We talked about it on this pod last season, and I thought he could bring a lot of good things to this team. So I'm excited to see it. But my only concern is if everybody's getting the green light on threes, I don't even want to know how many LeBron's going to take, because he was taking 8 a game 2 seasons ago when he was like the worst 3-point shooter, or he had the worst 3-point shooting season of his career.
Yeah.
He's out there putting up 12 to 13 threes. I might lose my mind. But I mean, in all fairness, he did have a pretty good season last season, but he had a terrible season the season before. So what is he, an average? I mean, he's like a 34% average 3-point shooter. So.
Well, again, I don't think it means that everybody's
you think JJ's going to tone LeBron down from the 3-point line?
No, LeBron's going to do LeBron's going to do what he wants to do. But my point is,
no, I don't like that answer. He needs to hold everybody accountable.
I think he will. But my point is, I don't think he's saying we want to jack up 63s a game. I think what he's saying is we need to increase the production a little bit. Like, we can't live in the 20 to 24 attempts a game like we've been accustomed to. We need to be in the 35, over 30, like, that 32 to 38 range.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying. Just we have to increase the aptitude a little bit to allow us to do what we want to do on offense. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it's nice to hear, AD seems to be really focused on the idea of him personally being the defense player of the year, but also the Lakers, having a more defensive minded mentality and a better defensive team because they were, very up and down defensively last year.
Yeah.
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 And
The only thing I wasn't too fond of AD saying was it was almost like he was kind of hedging his bet a little bit on the start of the season. He's like, hey, look, we got a whole new coaching staff. It's going to take time. There's going to be adjustments, and it's like, we all know that. It's no secret. You don't have to go out there and say it. But by him saying that, I was just kind of like, and especially like, who knows, like how much they're really going to play him and LeBron coming out of the Olympic, summer and all that. And I don't know. I just wasn't too fond of that part. But again, it sounds like he's very receptive to JJ and the things that he's been saying too. So
yeah, and we've heard the words, development, player development, the culture that they want to sort of build here with JJ and Rob's philosophy of developing some of the younger guys, right? Obviously Max Christie is expected to have a increased role. You have Dalton Connect, who's gonna obviously play a role, and then you have the kids that were here last year. You got Lewis, you've got Jalen Hood-Schifino, who apparently is having a pretty good whatever you want to call it, camp, if you will, before the season started, like summer camp, whatever. It looked really good in practice, I guess, this week. So I think it'll be really interesting to balance sort of that dynamic of player development, but also holding ourselves accountable to win, because there has to be expectation, even though nobody wants to really put a sort of number or real expectation out there. Even JJ's been kind of, non-committal about exactly what the expectation is. I know no one wants to say it, but this is Lakerland. Like we don't do rebuilds. This ain't Toronto.
Yeah. Real quick though, as far as Bronny and Dalton and their interviews and pairing them up together, I thought it was kind of funny because it was almost like, they like Bronny joked about it, like, oh, all these questions are going to be for you, and they really turned out to pretty much they started off interviewing both of them, but there was a good 5-6 minute stretch where it was just like all questions for Bronny, and like Dalton was just sitting there like,
I know, but it's that, I mean, of course, but that's not a surprise. Bronny moves the needle, fair or unfair. So,
but imagine being Dalton though, and like sitting there and like, I wasn't even supposed to be on this team, and now here I am, like sitting next to Bronny, having to like listen to all these reporters ask questions about him and LeBron. Wow.
Well, crazy. But then you look at the other side of that is it takes a lot of pressure off a guy like Dalton Connect.
Yeah, that's true. That is
because
true.
he could go 0 for 8 one night, but if Bronny plays 1 minute and goes 0 for 2, that's all anyone's going to talk about.
That's true. That's true.
So there's two sides to it.
But overall, they seem like they have a pretty good friendship, and it'll be interesting to see how their relationship kind of develops, in this kind of very unique scenario that they've been thrown into, I think, together this season. So
yeah, sure. You got, obviously the Lakers have a very unique situation with LeBron and Bronny, and how obviously that's going to play out, not just whenever they quote unquote make history, but the whole season of how that is going to end up playing out. So
yeah, I almost wonder, like, when is it going to start becoming cringeworthy, because like it's all that's been talked about is LeBron and Bronny for these last couple of days. Like, at what point does it start getting to players? At what point does it start getting to fans? At what point, quarter through the season, we're 5 games under 500, is anyone talking about it? Is he even there? So,
well, the old adage, winning solves everything. If the Lakers are playing well, it's not going to be a problem. But I do think that's why it's kind of important to get the, historical moment out of the way quickly. Yeah. So it's not something that lingers, because like you said, especially if they get off to a bad start, like if we start off 0-3 or something like that, and it hasn't happened yet, now you've got the slow start of the season questions that are going to, they're going to build up. And then when is LeBron and Bronny going to do their thing? So I think it would behoove them to to get it out of the way, and then
Behoove them.
and then they can just focus
Behoove
on
them.
trying to win.
Oh, you're goofy, man.
I know.
All right, let's move us
we'll
along
see.
here.
All right. Yes, let's move along as we always do. Okay, so we talked about media day. Obviously, that means training camp, practices, everything's underway, and it also means the season is officially going to begin. Preseason starts this weekend. The Lakers actually play their first game Friday night. I think this one's in Palm Springs, right? Against the T-Wolves, who they actually will face opening night of the regular season. And then I think they play their second preseason game. I think it might be Sunday against the Suns. So we'll get a nice little taste right out of the gate. I know that it's preseason, so who knows who's going to play and not going to play. I think I was reading something earlier today about LeBron hasn't decided what preseason games he's going to play in or not play in. I guess when you're LeBron James, you're 40 years old, you just decide what preseason games you're going to play in. No one tells you you're going to play tonight.
Well, and you kind of alluded to it earlier when we're talking about the Mike Tyson quote, and that, it always seemingly fits, right? And it seems like we're talking about the same things every season. Are we going to take the preseason serious? Are we not? So as long as we keep, going that route, we're going to have Mike Tyson quotes till, bleeding out our ears, dude.
I mean, regardless of how much LeBron and AD play, because we don't want them to play a ton in the preseason anyways, but I do think that it will be important for the Lakers to get some developmental goals, if you will, checked off during the preseason, right? Play with some things, give guys extended runs, especially like the Christies and the Connects, guys that are probably going to be part of, what JJ Redick envisions. I think he said that he thinks the ideal rotation or regular season is about 9 guys. Yeah. Obviously, that'll change with injuries and things of that. But if you have a standard 9 to 10 man rotation, that probably means that guys like Connect, Reddish, Jalen Hood-Schifino maybe will have to be ready to go, right? If they're not part of that 9-man rotation every night, they'll have to be ready to roll. And I think that is something you can get out of the preseason, right? You can get those guys a taste and see sort of, how they fit or what they can do when they're called upon, because we're already going to start the year without Wood. We're already going to start with the year probably without Vando. So those are 2 guys that you would figure would probably be in that 10-ish man rotation, right?
Yeah, and I think you got to get, you said checking off boxes or whatever developmental things. We need JJ to get a win or two too,
Yeah.
He needs to get a win, and I do think some of these key guys do need to play too. It can't just be all the young guys, and then we start the season and it's just like, okay, ready, go. These guys,
So. I agree. They got to play a little bit, but my feeling on the preseason. It's just like you don't have to win them all, but you can't lose them all either. You got to at least win one. You can't lose all the preseason games. It's just a bad look. You got to win at least one.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm excited. Obviously, you're always excited at the start of the year, of course. So I'm excited to see. For better or worse, this is what we got. So I'm excited to see what they can do.
I want you to get your juices flowing. You tell Billy too. We need to make sure that we go attention to detail on every pregame stat post that we put up. All right, because it's all about attention to detail this season. So
okay, I'll run them. I'll run them by JJ.
Then we got to get those up for every preseason game, man. I don't want no malarkey around here, dude.
Well, we'll see how the season goes. If it's malarkey or not, all we can do is what we get. And if that's what the team gives us, then that's what we got to put out there.
I like how towards the end of last season, it was just like, win the damn game. It was never even any more like stats, dude. It was just like, just get a damn win.
But sometimes that's where you're at. Sometimes it's like you got to get a win by hook or crook. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. We're excited. Next week we'll, recap the first preseason games among some other things. So be fun times here. Just my biggest takeaway is nobody gets hurt, right? Just nobody get hurt in the preseason, please. That seems to be our downfall every year, where somebody, the Kendrick Nuns, the Gabe Vincents of the world, play one preseason game and then they're done for 6 months.
Because we're a championship team when fully healthy.
Well, that's your. I know you're going to take that to the grave. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see if you live or die by that sword this year. Moving along, we'll end our show this week with another fun episode of It Matters to Us, our new fun segment where we throw some ideas, thoughts, headlines, whatever you want to call them, about sports over the past week that we find valuable or important or interesting. Right, Kobe?
Interesting.
So I want to kick it off this week, obviously. Come on, your timing's got to be better, baby.
I know, man. Damn, I'm multitasking here.
I know. Come on. I don't know. What are you doing? Just scratching lotto tickets? Save that for later. I want to start with, obviously, a big NBA trade that happened that the Knicks felt kind of surprising, but when you read about it, obviously you think about it, that Minnesota's looking to get rid of Cat, shed some money. That the Knicks were desperate to try to find a center all summer because they lost a couple guys and they were trying to fill that void. So on paper, it makes sense, but nonetheless, kind of a blockbuster type trade, literally like a couple days just before training camp, where Minnesota sends, their all-star level center in Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks, and they get Julius Randle, who's an all-star once, and Dante DiVincenzo, who's a pretty solid role player, starter bench guy. Was pretty good for the Knicks last year, averaged about 15 points, obviously a high-level three-point shooter. So just kind of want to get your thoughts, Kobe, like maybe your initial reaction, like what was your thoughts of the trade, and who do you think won the trade? Did the Knicks win it? Did the Wolves get better? Did someone get worse? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had seen a post that it was like literally to the day that the Dame trade happened last season,
Yeah.
which was like right before, media days or whatever. And,
Yeah.
I was at work thinking like, Anthony's probably pissed about that too. There's another trade that, happened, blockbuster, and Lakers weren't involved. But,
Yep.
but no, I mean, dude, I don't know. I mean, obviously, the first thing that went through my mind was like the whole Jalen Brunson thing and how he took the pay cut and, to do the whole, Villanova Knicks thing. And, then there goes Dante. But then you hear the next day that Dante just wasn't going to be happy in his role coming off the bench potentially. So maybe that's why he was in the deal. But I mean, you look at the Knicks and, to me, they feel a little bit more loaded. I would think that with the addition of Cat, that they maybe won the trade slightly. I mean, what's Julius Randle been up to lately? I don't know.
Rehabbing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Knicks are going to be fun to watch next season. And I guess I'll say the Knicks won the trade.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Knicks were good last year, right? And fun to watch at times last year. Brunson was, I mean, he was fantastic for them last year.
Yeah.
And then you look at the totality of what the Knicks did, right? They go out and they get Bridges, they re-sign Anunoby. So now you're looking at what were they going to do with Randall, because they didn't have the center. So you got three forwards basically that are all starters. Randall at 6'8.5", he can't play center, really, not on a night in and night out basis. So on paper, it totally makes sense. You go out and you get a legit 7-foot center that can play the position, a big body in the paint, can shoot the three, can score. You're not losing anything really defensively because neither Randall or Cat are considered high-level defenders.
Yeah.
You're giving up a little bit of depth, obviously, with a guy like DiVincenzo, but you got to do that, A, to sweeten the deal, and B, because you're taking back, more money, obviously, with Cat than what you're giving up in Randall. So for the Knicks, totally makes sense. I think that they probably overall look like the slight winner on paper. And I get it from the T-Wolves perspective, not just from the money and the cap space, not just from the idea that they felt like they had to get rid of Towns if they wanted to keep Naz Reid and Walker, and even potentially extend Rudy Gobert in a year. So they looked at, is it better to keep Towns or be able to retain Naz Reid and Walker. So, but that aside, if you also just look at it on paper, I was never really a fan of the two center, experiment.
Yeah.
So, Towns and Gobert really, even though one's offense, one's defense, at times in the postseason, you pretty much had to have one on the floor and one off the floor. You couldn't really have them both out there in stretches that were too long because it started to be problematic. So I get why they'd want a guy like Randall, because now it eliminates that two-headed monster from the center position where you got two centers on the floor at all time. Plus, with the emergence of Naz Reid as your backup center, it gives them more flexibility to get rid of a guy like Towns. And Randall, even if you want to argue maybe he's not quite as good of a overall player as Towns, he's still a pretty good offensive player in his own right, can shoot the three a little bit, but he gives a different dynamic, right? He's a little more versatile because he can dribble, he can shoot, he can pass. Really?
Come on, bro.
Really?
60 minutes, bro. Come on.
Come on.
What are you doing?
I'm breaking it down, dude. That's what analysts do. We break it down. And then obviously DiVincenzo gives them another player off to strengthen the bench because their bench was pretty thin. So I get it.
Thank you for that dissertation on the Eastern Conference, Anthony. Appreciate it.
But I agree with you. I give the Knicks slight edge. Okay, quick NFL recap. Of course, we're 4 weeks in the books. NFL Matter Stats, another poor weekend with the exception of Billy's Lions, who, needed damn near 50 points to win. But nonetheless, they still got to win. All the rest of our teams suffered another loss, this year. Panthers, poor Jags.
This week.
This week, sorry, yeah. Oof, poor Jags. Well, I'm writing the Jags off. They're done. But even my Eagles, they got shellacked in Tampa Bay. So defense looked poor. Yeah, not a good week. Not a good week. Other than Billy, another rough week in the NFL in this crazy season where it seems like we're 4 weeks in. It seems like every team's either 2-2 or 1-3.
Yeah.
And finally, you may notice the Dodger blue right here, right? The MLB playoffs about to start this week, and our Dodgers are set to embark on what will hopefully be a World Series run. Oh, look at that's cute. Oh, that's cute.
Got your Ohtani right here, just for you, man.
When he used to play in the minors, that's so cute. Hey, now that he's playing with the big boys, setting career marks, having the greatest season of his life, making the postseason for the first time, the Dodgers go into the playoffs with the best record in baseball. I know you're not a huge baseball guy, but you see enough, you know enough. Do the Dodgers have a realistic chance to win the World Series? Can they win it, Kobe? Can they win it?
I mean, anything is possible, but it's like I told you in the text messages. It's like they're always, getting there. They're getting to the mountaintop, but they can never seal the deal. They're getting to the playoffs, but they can never get it done.
One World Series.
They have these historic seasons, and then they flame out. They flame out, and
I agree. That's why Ohtani came. That's why Ohtani's here. That's why they spent the money on guys like Yamamoto, because the Dodgers won one World Series since 1988. That was, obviously in their version of the bubble. But you're right. It has to happen in the postseason, and we'll see. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping that Ohtani can, ride this, this crazy month or so that he's had to end the regular season and put the team on his back and find a way to get us over the hump and at least get us back to the World Series. Give us a shot. Give us a shot. NBA season, MLB playoffs, Lakers, Dodgers. Gotta love it.
What more could you ask for?
Gotta love it. What more could you ask for, right? Just win. Just win.
All right. See on here. Next up is Billy's item. Oh, that's all we get from Billy. He's out. PTO day. We didn't expect him to be out, but it's all good. We'll see you next week, Billy. I mean, for me, what matters to me this week, not much. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, there was nothing
matters to you this week.
nothing really going on in the fight game. I mean, last week I talked Lakers, so I talk Lakers again. The only thing that really kind of stuck out to me, and you may have seen it, Anthony, I posted it on my personal IG, was I just like the moment that Andy Dalton and Bryce Young had at the end of that Panthers Bengals game. It because by all accounts, it sounds like now that Bryce Young has been yanked, he's done. His time in Carolina is done and over. And maybe that's true, but I just enjoyed seeing them, on the sideline at the end, conversating, and him still remaining in good spirits. And even last week after the win, after the Panthers win, Bryce Young was right there pounding up Andy Dalton in the locker room. They're laughing, having a good time, and it's just good to see him still remaining in good spirits. Because that can't be something easy to go through. And I think after he was benched, he even said it. He's like, "Hey man, looking at the numbers, I mean, it makes sense." So. But it's cool to see him, taking it gracefully, and hoping for good things for Bryce Young moving forward. So,
yeah, I don't know if his time in Carolina is over per se, but like you said, it's a good learning experience for a young player. Obviously, Andy Dalton's been around a long time, so nothing bad can come out of him learning something from a guy like Andy Dalton. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but hey, still got more wins than the Jags.
Aaron's just falling off the planet, dude. He ain't even on IG no more, man. Can't find that guy.
I don't. Hey, he's probably hiding out. Like you're 0-4. What you got to do?
Just for the listeners, that we tag all our peeps, even the producer of the show, at the end of the week when we do our football recaps. And right now he's untaggable. Double A is untaggable.
Poor guy. Poor guy. We still love you though. We ain't mad at you. So, anyways, all right. Well, I think that wraps up this week's edition of the Matter of Stats podcast. Make sure you continue to follow us anywhere you get your podcast. Check out all our social media outlets, and enjoy this weekend's preseason Laker basketball, Dodger playoffs, and we'll be back next week to break it all down.
Should be fun. Peace.
Matter of Stats podcast.